Hello and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri.
And Amy Cornell.
And this is a show, we say this all the time when we're developing these shows. We're like, oh, we've done a show on this and we've done a show on this. I don't believe that we've ever done a show on book bundling. If we have, it was in the first year and now we're in our fifth year. And so very excited about the show. If you're a new listener, if you just found us, welcome. We are really happy that you're here. I'm in the final stretch, the final stretch. By the time this show hits, probably the final stretch of the Amazon Author Formula Workbook. We have a cover and the interior is being finalized. I'm really excited about that book, which ties into the conversation of book bundling, because at some point, the workbook and the main book will probably be book bundled in some form or fashion. So it was very timely to have this conversation. I also just very separately, I want to give a shout out. Listen, y'all, if you're not using the Libby app, it's a great way to get into your libraries, and you don't even have to go in. Like, if people are just like, well, I don't have a library near me. Doesn't matter. You can be anywhere in the world, actually, and get access to books. It's fabulous. I have so many books on hold on my shelf right now, Amy. It's crazy. Please don't put books on hold that I want, because I'm already waiting 9 and 10 weeks for some titles. Have you tried it yet? Have you used it? Because I know when I get really addicted to something, I'm always pestering Amy in text. I'm like, oh, you should try this. Have you tried it yet? Have you tried it yet? I'm sure sometimes she silences my text, which is fine and understandable.
I do have it downloaded on my phone.
You do? That's awesome.
I know. We are making baby steps. I am not ashamed to admit I get so much more reading done during peak sports season for my kids, and that is happening right now. So stay tuned for an update. I will be having all the opinions on all the recent recs before the end of the season. I love this time of year for that.
Yeah, but it really is a great tool. And it's also really fun if your book is in the library system. And we actually did a show on that topic, on libraries, getting your books in libraries. It's really fun. I love when we have authors who have their books get picked up by libraries. I love looking them up on the Libby app and just seeing. It's a really, really fun tool. And you can read magazines and all kinds of stuff. So highly, highly, highly recommend. Nothing to do with the topic of book bundling, but just worth a mention. So book bundling. So the history of book bundling was actually really brought into the foreground by the romance market, right? So romance authors were bundling their books and creating these, 2, 3, 4, and sometimes up to like 10 books in a bundle. So just to be clear, right? We wanted to do the show about book bundling. If this is something that you've considered, but you haven't really known where to go with it, hopefully the show will help you. If you haven't done it and had never considered it and wondered how these books were showing up like this on Amazon, looking like there were multiple books on their retail page, hopefully this show will help to understand that and unpack this topic a little bit more. So a book bundle, just by definition, is 2 or more books in typically from the same author, but we're gonna explore that as well. And they're put up on Amazon. They're always an ebook, even though I know that we have box sets of print books and whatnot. That's not what we're talking about in this show. And I mean, we have a number of authors, Amy, don't we, that have done book bundles and explored that as well?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's always very exciting.
Yeah. And I think that the book, so let me give you an example of when this can work. So you have like 2 or 3 books out in a series and you're coming out with the 4th book, and maybe the series spanned over 5 or so years, so your first book is 5, 6 years old, you might decide to bundle book 1 and 2 as book 4 comes out, right?
Mhm.
There's a perceived value with book bundling. So when you have two books, which we'll get into pricing in a minute, but essentially like two books for the price of one, maybe, the perceived value is higher. It also is a great way to bring in new readers. So one of the things that I like to talk about when I talk to authors is, um, how are you building new reader interest, right? So if you have a lot of books out, how are you building new reader interest? And a lot of times, they'll say, well, I don't really have any new books coming out for another couple of years, whatever. Consider maybe bundling two or three or more, depending on how many books that you have, in an electronic format and putting that up on Amazon. That is now a new product that you can market and promote. And it can bring in new readers. And again, it's also fun. Sometimes authors like change their book covers or,
Yeah.
if you've wanted to revise your book cover, I'm a huge fan of revising a book cover, especially if you feel like the first time you didn't really hit it out of the park. But a book bundle is also a great opportunity to come up with a new revised book cover. We worked with an author, Christina George, and her book bundle for book 1 and 2 in the Publicist series actually has a cover that is radically different from the ones that she had when the books launched because she wanted to have a little bit more fun with it. So,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Yes, I love that part of it. I love the branding part of it because it's like, oh, it's like a shiny new toy that you get to work with, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then, Amy, do you want to talk about the promotional benefits of doing a book bundle?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we always have said you want to take up as much retail space as you can because that is something that, we talk about buyer psychology a lot. An author that is continuing to produce work looks more like a sure thing, especially if you're writing a series or you write on a topic that consistently. They want to see that you're in it for the long haul, you know? So creating a book bundle is a great way to create yet another product for your virtual bookshelf, which is really great. And again, you get to kind of start your marketing all over. Like Penny said, a lot of
Yeah.
times, these are not new books, these are backlist titles. Like Penny mentioned, I love that idea of releasing a bundle in prep for the release of the next book in your series and let those play off of each other. And this is just a great way to start fresh. And because we hear that a lot from authors, it's like, well, I hate talking about myself, or I just, I'm not comfortable with self promotion. But if you do a bundle, that's like talking about a brand new product. And you shouldn't shy away from that. I get
Yeah.
it. Sometimes it's hard to continue talking about your book 2 years later. Like, I've said it all. And now I just feel desperate. But the book bundle, you get to treat it like a new book, which is very cool.
Yeah.
And then the pricing options as well, like play around with your pricing. That is one thing I think that authors don't do enough of just across the board, Penny, is testing. If you have full control over all the things, do some testing. Don't do knee-jerk testing. Don't change things around every other month just because you didn't think you sold enough type. You know what I mean? That, like, don't go nuts with it, but definitely do some testing. Every quarter, try out some different price points, things like that. And bundles are a great way to do that anyway, because especially if they're for books that have not been moving very well lately anyway, either because of the age or, you know what I mean? There's a lot of factors that come into that. You're able to get away with a lower price and then promote the hell out of that. Bundle them together, promote them like crazy, do like limited discount promotions, things like that. And it's such a great way to feed a lot of new traffic to your page and to revive a lot of interest. And the price doesn't have to stay low forever, but it's just another great way to get people in your funnel and introduced to your series or your work.
Yeah. 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 I completely agree with that. And I think that we're going to talk about types of book bundles and whatnot, but I think that it's also worth mentioning, you want to bundle books that complement each other. And sometimes I've seen authors who in the genre fiction market who go to, several different authors will come together and say, okay, we're going to create a book bundle of all of our books, or one each, one or two each, whatever. And I've seen book bundles for books that are, 15 to 20 books long, which is a lot, actually. But make sure that they complement each other. And part of the reason for that is because I mean, there's an argument that could be made that, okay, well, so what if so let's say you have a crime thriller and you have a cozy mystery and you have, you know, um, amateur sleuth and you have, police procedural, and you put them all in a book bundle, and there's all these different authors and you're all marketing the books, and that's great. And everybody's going to get exposure to more of your books. But the problem is that a lot of times these readers don't cross over. So if you're doing this with other authors, make sure that you're aligning with people who have, where you're going to be pulling in the same readers, because otherwise it doesn't really, the benefit gets a little bit, it's a little bit diluted in my opinion. If you are bundling your own books and you write across a bunch of different genres, the same rules apply, right? And I would say the same thing for nonfiction. So typically nonfiction authors, I mean, I want to say typically, but there's always the exception, right? But a lot of times nonfiction authors write on one topic and they stay with that one topic. But if you are writing on a bunch of different things, like if one day you're writing about, how to teach your kids something, and the next thing you're writing about is, yoga for seniors or whatever, I mean, those two are probably not going to go, you're not going to want to bundle those. So just be kind of mindful of that. Amy, do you want to talk about, do you want to kick us off with the different types of, I know we have already sort of addressed that a little bit, but when you want to dig into the different types of book bundling?
Yeah, absolutely. The clear, obvious one is going to be fiction. If you write in a series,
yeah.
As Penny already said, there's different ways to do this, and you don't have to pick one bundle, right, Penny? Like you don't have to. You can do multiple versions of this. So you can start by just, depending on how many books are in your series, you can start by bundling just book 1 and 2. Down the road, you could do books 1 through 4 when the series is complete. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go about this. So don't feel like you have to do it all. But I would say, all at once and make that decision. But I would say, for a lot of authors, it's a lot depending on your background and what your sales are like to date. Do you have a lot of return buyers, things like that? It's a lot simpler to get people on board, especially if you're relatively new or don't have a big following yet, with 2 books versus saying, hey, invest the time and trust that you're going to love this, buy all 4 books at once. You know what I mean? Like that gets a little trickier, I think, personally.
Yes.
It's definitely one thing if you have some standalone titles that have done really well, have great reviews, things like that, that could absolutely support somebody buying books 1 through 4 all at once, even if they haven't, you know what I mean? That makes a little more sense when you have other titles on your bookshelf that show them like, okay, people like their work. Like, I'm just going to jump in because I love the concept of this. I love this genre. I'm going to do it. So that makes sense. But I think if you're still getting your footing in this whole author space, diving right in and expecting people to buy books 1 through 4 all in one bundle is probably going to be a big ask. And you may not see a lot of movement on, massive bundles like that unless you have other things to support them jumping in like that. But another great option is connected standalones. So we've worked with a few clients recently, Penny, where this is a thing where the same character or group of characters, so all the stories work together, but they're not reliant on reading them in order. So that's a really great option for bundling as well. So same universe, same theme, same leading character, but it's not necessarily a chronological story of their life. A lot of this, I love the ones with like groups of friends,
Oh yeah.
Where kind of different books touch on, like you get kind of a sneak peek at the different characters within a story, depending on the book, but they all work together because you start recognizing names and things like that. But you can read them in any order that suits your fancy, which I think is very cool.
Yeah.
And then, obviously short stories or novellas, like similar to the connected standalones, combine those into something that people can jump into all at once. That's another very cool option. And what's nice about that, short stories and novellas, it gives people a taste for your work too. So, especially if you promote it as get to know this, get to, you know what I mean? Like lean into the fact that it's a great, easy gateway for people to get into your work and to understand your writing and, to become fans and things like that. Really take advantage of those opportunities for shorter reads because we've talked about it a lot. Typically, books, people don't, they don't skip over buying a book because of the money. Yes, we talk about pricing and pricing does matter, but at the end of the day, you really have to remember how much of somebody's time you're asking for when you're asking them to buy your book. That's a huge consideration to people. Time is worth more than money for a lot of us nowadays. There just isn't enough hours in the day. So always keep that in the back of your head when you're connecting with readers and trying to sell your books and when you're doing your marketing is that you're asking people for a huge chunk of their life. Like, how do you make it sound worth it to them when that's the factor,
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think that, just before we dig into the nonfiction stuff, so it's worth getting a little bit nerdy about this because this is a question that comes up a lot when I talk to authors. So we already mentioned that the book bundle is electronic. You do not have to, in the majority of cases, you do not have to completely revamp your book interior unless you want to. So typically, a good interior person will combine the various EPUB files into one file. So if you have books, so if your books are in a series, a lot of times the interiors will look the same. But if you have books that are not necessarily in a series, so a lot of this, fiction or nonfiction, a lot of the interiors will look different. You can keep that branding. You're going to revise the cover to reflect the series, the book bundle, but the interiors basically just if you have the EPUBs, a solid interior person can just combine them into one book file that you then upload to Amazon. So that's just something to consider because that's where this is a question that I get a lot. They're like, well, but do I have to have the book redesigned? Do I have to no, you do not. If you have those files, if they were given to you, just that you literally just combine them, but they do have to be in one digital file, right? So if you have multiple authors in this, you're going to have the conversation again, not to get too far down the rabbit hole, Amy, but I just thought about this is you're going to have the conversation of, okay, so who is managing that account? Because the major like you could each author can put it onto their own account if you want and then just leave it at that. But if you're working with multiple authors and you want to just put it under one person's account for some reason, I don't know why you would do that, but sometimes that happens. Then one person is essentially managing that Amazon retail page. But you have to upload this, you upload the book to KDP because I don't think that you can do multiple books in a bundle through like Draft to Digital or Ingram Spark. I could be wrong, but upload it to KDP, upload the cover and all that, and then you're good to go. I don't know if Amazon has placed limits on book sizes. Like I know I cited 15 books in a series. I don't know that they've necessarily put limits on book sizes because Amazon, as we've done shows on, we do shows on Amazon all the time. Amazon changes everything every day. But that it's a very, very basic, straightforward process. So then in terms of nonfiction, topic-based collections, right? So if you have a whole bunch of books that you've done, I mean, I have bundled my own books. All books, every book that I write is on book marketing, although they're different topics. Like I had an internet marketing book, which I don't re-release anymore just because it's so difficult to keep it updated because everything changes all the time with social media portals and whatnot. But I've bundled my own books and basically they fall under, the topic-based collection. So book marketing, right? So if you are listening to this and you're like, you know what, I should get together with a few of my nonfiction author, friends and maybe we could bundle our books keep in mind that you want to make sure that that they make sense, much like what we talked about earlier in that you don't want to lose readers, right? You don't want to have a book on teaching your kid how to play soccer or whatever, and then a book on yoga for seniors. It's not really, you're not going to get a lot of sell-through on that. How-to guides, author brand bundles. So as I mentioned, I've bundled my books. If you have a lot of books, your nonfiction, great. You can also do this seasonally. So I really like this idea actually. Themes and seasons. So a seasonal bundle of your books for, whatever, whether it's, a summer holiday or, the big holidays or, themes, right? So fitness or cookbooks or whatever. I mean, I think that's a really, really cool idea, but that actually could apply to fiction or nonfiction, right?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, do you see a lot of children's books that are bundled? Because I really like the idea of bundling them, but I don't know that I see that a lot.
No, I mean, I don't, because it still to some degree goes back to, there's still very much a big divide on children's book in digital versus print. You know what I mean? Like, I think it really depends. Honestly, for me, it depends on the kiddo, you know?
Yeah.
Some kids are just so used to being, and I'm not knocking this, on their tablets that they like reading books on their tablets. They know how to find it. Like they know all the things. I mean, my kids can work any of my technology better than I can at this point.
Uh, uh,
But then just like adults, honestly, some kiddos just prefer to read in print too. So it's truly a child thing more than even a parent thing. I kind of want to say, but I don't think it's a bad idea by any means. And it like the process is relatively simple, and it's an inexpensive way, again, to take up more space on your retail page to offer more to parents. And so, and I think a lot of it too, Penny, comes to how it's presented. We do a lot about retail page optimization. I think being smart about how you present your children's book, why the bundle makes sense. You know what I mean? I think that's something that across the board, no matter what you're bundling, make sure to lean into why the bundle is a benefit, Like, I think account for that in your description, in all the author central feed, like different sections that are provided on author central. We talk about those a lot. Really lean into why the bundle is such a great option because it's important. Don't just throw it together and expect like people to figure out like, oh, I guess I could get two and it might be a little bit cheaper, but that's not very exciting. Like you need to tell people, slap them in the face with why the bundle's a great idea. So for like a children's book, I would totally lean into keep your kiddos busy on your next road trip or flight to visit grandma and grandpa. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that across the board matters for no matter what genre you're in bundling, treat that bundle opportunity as a brand new way to come up with different sales angles,
Yeah.
for why, who that market is, why they would do it, what the benefits are to them, and lean into those and make it unique and separate from your titles individually,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's a really good, I think that really goes back to, I think that really goes back to making sure that it makes sense
Mm-hmm.
for your audience. I mean, I love book bundling. I think it can be really, I think you can revive a brand, you can revive a series, you can do all kinds of really, really fun things with it. But I think it also, like I said, it really has to be right.
Right.
So, and this is another thing too, sometimes when authors say, I have all these books out, I didn't really do it right the first time. What can I do now? And my answer is, you can re-release the books certainly, or you can leave the books as is and you can um, put together a book bundle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, the benefits to book bundling, I think once you start to um, navigate this road, the benefits to book bundling are huge. I mean, if you're doing it with other authors, then you all have exposure to your own audiences, which I love that idea, right?
Yes.
if you're doing it with books that are a little bit older, you're potentially bringing in new readers. There's a it's like book bundles seem like such a great deal, right? Because you're
Mhm.
getting two books for the price of one or three books for the price, whatever. And the pricing, I mean, I would say if you're thinking, you like listening to the show, you're like, oh, I think I want to, consider maybe doing a book bundle or something. Take a look at other similar authors and see what they're charging for their book bundle, right?
Mhm.
And I think just because it hasn't been done yet in your market, like this tends to lean heavier to fiction than it does to nonfiction. But I think that if you are, there's no reason that you can't be first to market with a book bundle. I mean, when I did the book bundle of my books, there still aren't a lot of book marketing books that that are being bundled. And I absolutely plan, like, I will release the workbook separately, and then after a time, I am 10,000% going to bundle it with the original book because it is a bundle. I mean, you know what I mean? So I think that being strategic about this and thinking, I have this series planned, and I think it's a really, really great way to build more readers, and it's a great way of starting over. If you came to us from the Backlist show, by the way, we've talked about, I know we mentioned that we did a show on this, and to go back and look for it. This is such a fabulous way to revive a backlist,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think that's a good point to bring up too, Penny. And you already said it when you said, make it strategic. Like a lot of things that we talk about in marketing, nothing, just one thing doesn't fix all your problems.
Yeah.
So building a bundle and throwing it up on Amazon is not going to revive your backlist, on its own.
True.
You really have to embrace this as an opportunity to do things the right way or better than you did the first time.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. That shouldn't sound like a chore. That should be like oh my gosh, yes, that's what I've needed,
Yeah.
So be strategic about how you're presenting it as a product, your plans for marketing it, your limited time discounts, all the things, and like totally embrace that you get to have a do-over essentially and really have it planned out and be smart about it, because that's when these work for you. It's not the creating it that fixes problems. It's the fact that you get to do things differently or better the next time around. That's what helps fix problems, revives your brand, finds new readers, things like that.
One of the other things that I really like about the timing of this particular show, for two reasons actually, is that if you're listening to the show in April, which is when it's going to land in the feed, you have plenty of time. If you think, oh my gosh, I'd love to do a holiday bundle, you have plenty of time now, right? Provided obviously that the books are written and they're already up on Amazon. Otherwise, maybe 2026.
Yeah.
But it's also, there was a time when book bundling, like everybody was bundling. You could not go to a single fiction conference, I don't care what genre it was, and not hear like 10 people in line waiting for your morning breakfast or something talk about their book bundle. It's faded a bit. So, like things kind of come and go a little bit. The appeal of book bundling has not faded. But the fact that there were so many people jumping on the bandwagon has, which I actually kind of like, because at that time, like you would look at a list, a genre on, genre fiction, mystery, romance, whatever, uh, on science fiction, didn't matter, on Amazon, and every single book that you saw on that list was bundled. It was a book bundle. So there wasn't anything really, I mean, it's great, again, for all the reasons that we mentioned, but there wasn't anything really unique about it.
No.
You don't see it as, I mean, Amy, you're on Amazon a lot, almost probably more than Jeff Bezos is, although he's probably busy tuning up his rocket to go to space. But
I know. Or working out. I don't even know if those pictures are real, but they still shock me every time I see
it's a little, honestly, like, I'm sorry, I just have to say this out loud. It's a little creepy.
I know it is. It's one of those things like, oh, wow. Okay. Back to real life. But truly, I think, and you've talked about this a lot in previous shows, Penny, for a number of different reasons. But, I think to your point, I think a lot of when the book bundling was that huge surge, also kind of aligned with the fact that so many of them were so freaking cheap, you know?
Yeah,
So
I'm
people
not.
are like, ooh, I'm going to get 4 books for 99 cents and now I'm winning. It's like leaving money on the table. But how, the way we've talked about before, yeah, sometimes it can push a lot of, immediate, you could see a surge in sales, but a lot of times those people, like we've talked about before, don't end up reading them because their Kindles just get full of all the things and they weren't actually fully invested in making that buying decision. It was more about like the 99 cents than it was about what they were buying.
Yeah.
And so they weren't making that, like those longer term connections with readers that were purchasing that really end up serving you long term. So I agree with you. I think I love the fact that it's kind of become much more strategic and you don't just see it everywhere. It's actually something that can be treated as something special again, finally,
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, I think that it's just, like I said, it's something that was wildly successful. And everybody did it. And then I think people just got really distracted by TikTok or something. I don't,
That's funny.
I don't really know, but, we love this idea. We hope that the show has been helpful and we love reader feedback. We love reviews wherever you listen to podcasts. If this is your first time finding us, welcome to our universe. We love the podcast actually has become, I would say, for both Amy and myself, one of the favorite things that we do when it comes to doing our, business promotion. And let's face it, the podcast is a promotional tool. I talk to a lot of authors who heard our podcast first and then decided they want to do a call. And we really love doing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is a lot of fun. And it's such a great way. It's such an easier way when we say, you know what, this is a problem. We need to talk about this. It's our direct connection to readers. It's so much more immediate. And we can talk about timely things too, because, again, our blog's been great to us. It continues to be great to us, but it's a lot easier to reach people about timely topics and about things that are happening in the industry right now through the podcast than it is through the blog.
Yeah. Yeah, it really, really is. So we love doing this show. We love bringing you the show. We love show ideas, as I mentioned. We love reviews. But if it is your first time listening, be sure to subscribe because you cannot review the podcast unless you subscribed. I didn't know that. I found that out. But also, you will get our shows every Friday in your feed. And again, if you're struggling with something, like what are you really challenged with? We really want to know because these show ideas come from y'all. So we definitely want to make sure that this podcast is dedicated to teaching and all the reasons that we're in business is the mission to help authors be successful. What's really interesting about this is that in the 5 years that we've done this show, so many podcasts on book marketing have come and gone.
Oh, yeah.
And and I get it because podcasts are not podcasting is kind of like a blog. Like I remember years ago when I was first in business, everybody was like, oh, you have to have a blog, you have to have a blog. And people dived headfirst into it and then realized that a blog takes a lot of work. And anything that you're doing long term takes a lot of work. The issue with the podcast is that it never really feels like work because we're hearing your ideas, we're getting ideas, we're incorporating them into the show. We have a lot of fun recording this. And so we did this for you guys and we welcome, we always welcome your input, but not that we're the last show on book marketing, but we're going to stay around long enough that we are. So
there you go.
And thank you, by the way, for the recent review that we got on the Kindle show. We really, really, really appreciate that. We will see you next Friday. We wish you all a great week and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.